Welcome back, friends. I'm Yvonne Davis, and today I'm going to be doing a video titled, What is the Deal with January 6th? All right, so before I get started, you may have seen my last video. I was talking about the fact that I'm starting my New Year's specials, and that will go for approximately 2 weeks total until midnight on December 31st. So if you're interested, you can check out the video or check the link below. So here's what I want to say about January 6th. I know I did some videos about this before, but it's natural. You know, people say things and then we start feeling anxiety again. And so what happened apparently, well, there's a lot happening, but there was one thing in particular that triggered a few people, and I got a couple of requests from my patrons in our group Zoom meeting last night, and they wanted to talk about the January 6th alignments because apparently there's at least one astrologer out there who was saying that, I believe he was saying that Biden was going to have a bad day. I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I want to keep that limited, so I'm not doing that. But I did think he said Biden was going to have a bad day. And that really triggered a lot of people because I don't think he was quite clear what he meant by bad day, or maybe I just didn't listen to the video closely enough because I had some other work I had to get done at the same time. But I want to be very clear about the charts on January 6th and about what could possibly happen and what cannot absolutely. Okay, let me say that again. What could possibly happen and what could absolutely not happen. So January 6th, we'll look at the alignments. And what I want to do is make a distinction between somebody having a bad day and somebody having a horrific or devastating day, okay? A bad day might be like getting a mosquito bite. A horrific or devastating day might be dying from malaria. Okay, so there's a wide spectrum there, and I think it might be fair to say Biden's having a bad day. Although, honestly, when it all comes to pass in the end, I wouldn't really call it a bad day. More just like a nuisance or an irritation. It's really not a big deal. You know what's happening here is that the Trumpians, and I'm really going to start trying to be careful about my language because I honestly think that the Trumpsters or Trumpians, whatever you want to call them, are different from the traditional conservative Republicans. And what's happening now is that there's a rending in the party, and because they're going through a divorce basically. And so the divorce proceedings haven't quite completed. There's some formalities we have to go through, but we will get there. So I'm going to show you a couple of things online to make it very clear. As many of you know, I actually have a degree in political science and economics from the University of Denver. And so I'm going to talk about the political structure, the constitutional structure around this, and look at the charts. All right, let's go for it. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is an article in the Washington Post, and it says, no, January 6th isn't another chance for Trump to reverse the election. Congress will count the electoral votes. The president will probably try to pretend the outcome is in doubt. It's not in doubt, okay? So let me just go through this because the article does such a good job of laying it out so clearly. And he basically says, January 6th is not another election day. Don't let President Trump convince you that it is. What will happen then, a joint session of Congress to receive the presidential and vice presidential election results transmitted by the states, typically occurs every 4 years in relative obscurity. But this election cycle has been anything but typical. While there's no realistic chance of anything happening January 6th to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power consistent with the will of America's voters and Monday's electoral college votes, there is still a good chance Trump will try to make the day a super spreader event for the election disinformation with which he is relentlessly trying to infect American democracy. Foreknowledge is, however, a form of inoculation here. By understanding exactly what does and doesn't happen on January 6th, all of us can contribute to making that day a reaffirmation of our democratic process rather than part of a continued assault on it. As required by the Constitution's 12th Amendment, the House and Senate will gather in a joint session presided over by Vice President Pence. And I'm going to actually talk about a scenario. What if Pence won't do it? Okay. Well, if he won't do it, it goes to the pro tempore senator. Can't remember his name, but it doesn't matter. Even if he wouldn't do it, even if no one will do it, it doesn't change anything because, and I'll explain why. But Donald Trump's, his term ends at noon on January 20th, 2021. Okay. There's absolutely nothing that can stop that. It will end at noon Eastern time on January 20th, 2021, and Biden will be inaugurated. Because if there were some just unbelievably bizarre event that occurred that made it impossible for Biden or Harris to be inaugurated, then Nancy Pelosi gets inaugurated. So there's no Donald Trump, okay? His term of power ends at noon Eastern time on January 20th, 2021, and there is nothing that can change that. There is nothing that can change that. So getting back to this, it basically says that, all this stuff is supposed to be worked out by December 8th, ahead of the Electoral College meeting on December 14th. In other words, all the disputes are supposed to have been worked out by then. But that there is this strange law. It says under a 130-year-old law called the Electoral College Count Act, if one representative and one senator jointly object to a slate, then the whole process pauses while the House and Senate separately debate the objection, then vote on whether to sustain it. Okay, so I want to be very clear. Yes, there is a Republican House member, Representative Mo Brooks of Alabama, said he is considering making an objection. Okay, considering. And I think there were four some states that they were going to object to. I know one was Pennsylvania. And that's the only one that really matters because you'd have to get a huge chunk of electoral college votes. You'd have to throw those out to make a difference. And so they'd have to throw out not only Pennsylvania, but at least 3 or 4 other states before it would ever make a difference. Okay, that's the first thing to understand. And so even if he gets a senator to join him on this, to make a formal objection in writing, which is the way the law says they have to do it, then all that happens is they may object, to Pennsylvania, and then they may object to Michigan, and then they may object to whatever other states they're objecting to. There were only 4 or 5. And they have to make this formal objection to each one. And then the House and Senate go their separate ways to debate the objection. And I think they have a maximum of 2 hours, okay? When that 2 hours is over, they have to come back and finish the vote, okay? And all of this has to be finished on January 6th. And so here's the most important thing you got to get to, is that not only do Republicans not understand, they can't apparently do research and read these articles themselves. Well, it's because they don't want to, they don't want to know what the truth is. But also they can't count. they can't add, it's like, that's the problem. They can't add. So even if Brooks finds 1 or more colleagues and senators to join him, there's no real possibility of overturning the outcome of the election. The Electoral Count Act requires both the House and the Senate to reject a slate of electors. And there is no sign that either chamber would do so. A number of Republican senators have already rejected such a challenge to the votes of the people, and Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is telling his caucus not to join in any such effort. And surely a majority Democratic House won't do so. You see, there is literally no chance that this will succeed. None. They're just playing games for the purpose of getting attention and stirring up their base and ways to, it's for attention and it's for money. And by getting those two things, it empowers them, but they're lying to the people. They're manipulating the people who are believing what they're saying, believing that there's actually a chance that this can be overturned. There is no chance, absolutely none. This will happen after the new House and Senate, basically the new Congress, is sworn in, because the new Congress is sworn in on January 3rd. But the Democrats still control the House, okay? The Democrats who impeached Donald Trump control the House. There is no way under the sun that they would ever give the election to Trump, ever. There is no scenario where that would happen. Absolutely none. Okay. So I think that's enough of the article to understand, it's about doing the math. Okay. So the Democrats, they don't want to, or I'm sorry, the Republicans don't want to live in reality, and they don't want to do the math. Okay. I don't know how, it's just so ridiculous. It's just unbelievable. All right, so let's go look at the charts. So the first chart we're going to look at is the January 6, 2021 chart. And I set it for 11:59 p.m. that night. And the reason why I did that is because there is an interesting alignment that day, which is the moon moving into opposition to Mars, Mars moving into conjunction with Uranus, the moon squaring Mercury and Pluto, and Mars and Uranus squaring Saturn and Jupiter. So these alignments are what's building up to the problem on Inauguration Day. Okay. So again, I want to be really clear. Somebody's having a bad day, and it's not really Biden. Okay. It's Trump. So let me show you how it lands on Trump's chart. Okay, you see that? He's got that massive finger of God alignment that I have talked about now for probably 2 or 3 years now. I've been talking about this finger of God alignment in Donald Trump's chart. And so Pluto is still in opposition to his Saturn and moving into an opposition to his Venus. But the most important one really is the Pluto opposite Saturn. And I did a video where I went in depth into the interpretation of a Pluto transit opposite your Saturn. And basically, Saturn in his 12th house is saying something has to end. It's an ending. You need to let go. It's over. And he doesn't want to let go. Okay. So Pluto is obsessively holding on and cannot let go. Okay. That's what Pluto is doing to him, but he has to let go. He doesn't have a choice. Okay. Whether he likes it or not. So he's obsessively holding on to something that he has to let go of. He doesn't have a choice. But so that's what's happening for Trump. So who's having the bad day here? Okay. Maybe Biden's having a mild irritation or annoyance, like a mosquito bite. Trump is losing everything from his perspective. He is literally losing everything. He's the one who's having the bad day. So going back to what the alignments look like by themselves, and the reason why I set it for 11:59 p.m. is because this is the moment that reality sets in for the Trumpsters, when they realize they've lost all hope. There's no goalpost left, unless they try to push it to Inauguration Day, which is beyond insane. It's absolutely beyond insane. But they may be that insane. They may be that insane. I can't comprehend it, but they may be. But the problem is this is the moment when reality does begin to set in. And there are going to be a lot of people who are really, really, really going to be having a meltdown. And I would say it's probably that 30%, that is like his hardcore base. Because even in the worst of times in his even in the worst of times in his 4-year administration, I don't think he ever went below 30% popularity and, approval. So, but he did, there were actually occasions when he went below 40%. And the reason why that's important to consider is because when you take the whole scope of Republicans in this country, there's 30% that may hold out when all hope is lost. But the rest, they will face reality. And that's why I say there's a rending of the Republican Party and the Trump Party, okay? They're getting a divorce, okay? And I would say that January 6th is like when the papers are finalized. They know they're getting a divorce, but when the papers are finalized on January 6th, that's when they really have to face reality about the divorce. And maybe they're going to stay in denial until January 20th. But that 2 weeks from January 6th, when they've lost all hope, to January 20th, that's when people, I would describe it as those insane, crazy Trumpsters who can't face reality will tip over from fantasy into literal insanity. And that's the only part that's scary. And so the issue is what happens on January 20th and following that day. I think we're going to start to see violence as early as midnight after the January 6th reality sets in. That 2 weeks will be building to a peak with the inauguration on January 20th and following it, okay? So the issue here is there's nothing Trump can do, but he has a lot of crazy people who listen to him and are going to flip their lids. As it turns out, fortunately, the Biden administration is planning a rather small inauguration to protect people from the virus. That will have an added benefit of protecting a lot of people from the crazies out there, although they may still go out and celebrate like they did on Election Day, but they'll be dispersed, which I think is actually better. I hope that's better, rather than all clustered in one place. I don't know. I think the best thing I can say about this is that there's nothing Trump can do, but it's an annoyance for Biden's administration because I know he wants to focus on the important things, such as healing the relationships with our allies in foreign policy. He wants to focus on the environment, and he wants to focus on taking care of, this pandemic. He wants to take care of the economy and probably some other really important things. But unfortunately, the first thing he's going to have to deal with is sedition and domestic terrorism, unfortunately. But it will go away. So I'm going to show you some more charts. So as I said, this is when they have to start facing reality, and they're not going to like it. And then 2 weeks later is Inauguration Day, when some people really flip their lids because they can't handle reality. But what's interesting is looking at how these alignments land on Donald Trump's chart. There are some really interesting things happening here. And the one that I think is most interesting is Jupiter and Saturn in his 7th house, because Saturn is the planet of limitation. When Saturn moves into your 7th house, you lose relationships, you lose support, okay? And this is from people who matter, okay? Now, Jupiter will bring support in, but it's bringing in the crazies, because Jupiter doesn't have a filter. It just brings people in. But Saturn has a filter. So Saturn will remove the people who actually matter, and Jupiter will bring in the crazies. But here's what's interesting is that Jupiter will move out of Aquarius and into Trump's 9th house, Pisces. And it will stay in Pisces for 11 weeks, and then it will return to Aquarius on August 1st. So let me show you that again really quickly. So on May 7th, Jupiter will move into Pisces. So Jupiter will move out of Donald Trump's 7th house, okay? So we'll no longer get the benefit of Jupiter. And all that will be left there is Saturn. Saturn all by his lonesome. And Saturn will make it very difficult for Trump to get any kind of support, okay? I mean, only the most intensely rabid people will continue to stick with him at this point. But all the people who actually matter will be long gone by this point. Now, so that happens May 7th, 2021. And then when Jupiter moves back into Aquarius on August 1st, it will stay there until December. So we'll have August, September, October, November, and a little bit of December. So somewhere between 4 to 5 months. And he'll start to, maybe build up support a little bit more. You have to understand that Saturn's going to be there the whole time. And Saturn is counterbalancing the benefit that he's getting from Jupiter. But then in December, when Jupiter moves into Pisces, that's it. No more Jupiter to help Trump in the 7th house of other people. Now all he will have is Saturn for another year and a half. Okay, so Saturn will be there for a total of 2.5 years. So the first year, Jupiter will move out for 11 weeks from May 7th to August 1st. And then it will move out permanently for its 12-year cycle in December of 2021. And then for the next year and a half, Saturn will be there all by his lonesome in Trump's 7th house of other people, all by his lonesome. And he will not have support, okay, except by the most nuttiest of nutty, insane people who aren't, you can't do anything meaningful with people who are nutcakes, okay? So, it's like what happened to Sarah Palin. Where's Sarah Palin today? Nobody gives a shit, to be honest. Nobody gives a shit. And they won't about Trump either. So he will completely lose support, and Saturn will stay there for another year and a half, all by his lonesome. And the other interesting thing is that Pluto will make a visit in March of 2023 into Aquarius. But what's interesting about Pluto moving into Aquarius is that Pluto does the same thing that Saturn does when it moves into a sign for the first time. Saturn continues to filter out people the entire time it's in the 7th house. But Pluto, when it first comes into the house, is when it removes people. So that first dip into Aquarius in March of 2023, and we'll be there for quite a while, and then it'll dip back into Capricorn. But that first dip in will be very dramatic for Trump in terms of completely obliterating the ground that he walks on, okay? Obliterating him. Like there's no ground. You know, it's just, the rug just gets pulled out from underneath him. So, you know, I think he'll have some mixed blessings in 2022. I'm sorry, he'll have some mixed blessings in 2021. But by the time we get to 2022, I mean, basically his party is over, absolutely over. Um, there's, you know, the Trump party will be, if it's not already a joke, it'll be such a joke, people won't even be talking about it anymore. It'll, you know, it'll be completely off everybody's radar because just nobody will care anymore. Um, so, so that's something to look forward to. We're on the downhill path, and this too shall pass. All right, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as I mentioned, if you want a reading, take advantage of it during this 2 weeks until midnight on December 31st. And you can get multiple readings if you want to give them as gifts or spread them out over the year. And my workshops are also on sale. So if you've wanted to do this, or if you know you're going to want to do this in the future, this is the time to do it. My readings are actually 66% off. I don't think it's exactly 66%, but pretty close. So that's basically, I slashed it by 2/3. So you're only paying 1/3 of my normal price. So that makes it super affordable for you. And I will see you again real soon in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.